Motorola Edge review, a more accessible flagship phone, The Verge. Earlier this year, Motorola burst back into the flagship phone world with the Motorola Edge Plus. A $999 smartphone designed to go toe-to-toe with top-tier phones like the Galaxy S20 Ultra or OnePlus 8 Pro. And now it's following that up with the Motorola Edge. A less expensive, less powerful version that promises sub-flagship features at a sub-flagship $699 price. I've already talked plenty about the hardware on the Edge Plus in my review of that device earlier this year. So I'll largely refer you there. Seeing as the Edge's design is identical in all but the color it comes in, a shimmering rainbow finished black that aggressively picks up fingerprints, and the number of cameras on the back. In short, though, it's a well-made slab of aluminum and glass that's fairly unremarkable. And the endless edge display, which curves around the sides of the device, is more eye-catching than actually useful. There are 6 areas where hardware on the Edge differs from the Edge Plus, though, all of which leave the Edge a little worse off compared to its pricier sibling. The cameras are downgraded on the Edge, including a switch from the 108-megapixel sensor to a 64-megapixel main camera. Which leaves the only real question about the Edge: are those sacrifices worth the drastically reduced price? The Snapdragon 765 in the Edge is Qualcomm's second-best processor. And in general, day-to-day use wasn't noticeably worse than using a flagship chip. Apps launch quickly, websites load fast, and navigating around the UI is snappy. More demanding games, like Fortnite or Asphalt 9, run well too. I did run into the occasional bit of stuttering and lag, particularly when launching the camera app or switching back to a previously open game, which may be due to the 6 GB of RAM. It is definitely the lowest I'd want to go for a high-end Android phone in 2020. But even those minor hiccups weren't really enough to be a concern. Similarly, the reduced battery size doesn't impact the experience. I was easily able to make it to the promised 2 days. Although admittedly my phone usage is a little different than normal thanks to working from home. The Snapdragon 765, which has an integrated modem and is more power efficient, is presumably a contributing factor toward making up the difference in battery size. The 64-megapixel main sensor that replaces the 108-megapixel camera on the Edge Plus holds up well. Like its pricier sibling, the Motorola Edge uses quad-pixel binning to produce lower-resolution images with better color and less image noise, so the Edge shoots 16-megapixel shots by default. It can shoot at the full 64 megapixels. Although, like the Edge Plus, those photos generally came out worse. And while you will lose the finer level of detail that the higher resolution camera offers, I was still pleasantly surprised by the Edge's camera. It won't hold up to the level of Apple or Google's industry-leading hardware and software. But it doesn't drag the device down, a problem that Motorola has had in the past. The telephoto camera is also worse on the Edge. It only has 2x optical zoom instead of 3x, and lacks optical image stabilization. Given that the telephoto lens was already the worst part of the Edge Plus, this isn't too much of a loss. The other 2 cameras are unchanged from the Edge Plus: the 16-megapixel ultra-wide-angle, macro camera, which takes pleasantly fun shots in both wide-angle and macro modes, and the front-facing camera, which is fine, except for the extremely rough portrait mode. The final 2 changes are the most drastic, as the straight-up missing features that the Edge doesn't have, rather than reduced versions of ones it does. The lack of wireless charging is a frustrating one for any device in 2020, as is the lack of any real waterproofing, something that it shares with the Edge Plus. And the sub-6 GHz 5G is definitely slower, especially compared to Verizon. In my tests on T-Mobile's 700 MHz network, I saw speeds of around 70 megabits per second down and 35 megabits per second up, not bad. But nothing close to the 250-300 megabits per second Verizon's mmWave offers. The flip side, of course, is that you can actually use the Edge on T-Mobile or AT&T, since it's not locked as a Verizon exclusive in the US. Every smart device now requires you to agree to a series of terms and conditions before you can use it, contracts that no one actually reads. It's impossible for us to read and analyze every single one of these agreements. But we started counting exactly how many times you have to hit agree to use devices when we review them, since these are agreements most people don't read and definitely can't negotiate. Install updates and apps. You agree this device may also automatically download and install updates and apps from Google, your carrier, and your device's manufacturer, possibly using cellular data. Some of these apps may offer in-app purchases. Backup to Google Drive. Your backup includes apps, app data, all history, contacts, device settings, including Wi-Fi passwords and permissions, and SMS. Use location. Google may collect location data periodically and use this data in any anonymous way to improve location accuracy and location-based services. Allow scanning. Allow apps and services to scan for Wi-Fi networks and nearby devices at any time, even when Wi-Fi or Bluetooth is off. Send usage and diagnostic data. Help improve your Android device experience by automatically sending diagnostic, device and app usage data to Google. Carrier location access. Your carrier occasionally requires location data to improve its services and analytics. Additionally, for Google Assistant, there's an option to agree to use voice match, allows your assistant to identify you and tell you apart from others. The assistant takes clips of your voice, which is only stored on your devices. Final tally: 3 mandatory agreements to use the phone at all, another 2 for Google account services, and 6 additional optional agreements. There are 2 other differences, which are less directly about hardware. The Edge costs $699 at retail, $300 less than the $999 price tag on the Edge Plus. And Motorola is offering at limited time, $499 promotional price on the Edge, making it half as expensive as the Edge Plus. The Edge is also usable for far more people since it's being sold unlocked, instead of limited to just Verizon customers in the US. In many ways, it's the flagship that Motorola probably should have made from the start, one that offers an almost premium experience at a lower price than its competitors, in an unlocked form that works on any network, rather than trying to meet them at the current $1,000 marketplace. Motorola makes a lot of phones at a lot of different prices, to the point where the lineups start to blur together. As a $700 phone, the Edge is certainly a better deal than its full-priced sibling, offering nearly comparable features and performance at a significantly reduced price. The current $499 price makes it an even better deal, one that starts to demand to be taken seriously as one of the better mid-range phones around. Very slow and patchy. In fact, they initially only promised one OS update for the Edge Plus. They've since walked that back and said it'll get 2 updates. But I'd be extremely skeptical. My guess is this phone gets Android 11 half a year later, and that's probably it. I think the permanent price should be $499, and that would be a fair price for this device, as it seems to be like OnePlus Nord. Text source: Verge.com